A real sense from ordinary South Africans, load shedding top of mind, but also a real sense of cynicism. People there saying it's going to be the same old people. It's unlikely to make any positive difference. We need a fundamental transformation. But before we go any further, JJ, you've just got some information for us. Tell us about it.
It looks like we are at 8:30 now.
What?
But maybe Sipamandla can confirm, but it looks like we have another, and you are staying, you're not going anywhere, you're not going home.
I should have brought my sleeping bag. So it's no longer now. So what Sipamandla is hearing, and honestly, Sipamandla's sources are pretty impeccable, is that it might now only happen at 8:30. I mean, look, you were just chatting about this in the break, Susan, and you were saying that have we ever had delays like this? I do remember waiting for family meetings in COVID and things were delayed because we knew regulations were being discussed and plans were being made. And let's face it, you know, it was completely uncharted territory, not only for us here in South Africa, but across the world. And it was very difficult to make these decisions. But this president has had 2 months to sort this out. What do you think is going on here?
I think there are so many moving parts in this equation, so many different interests that have to be pleased, so many enemies that have to be kept close, and new generations of leaders that also help keep this president safe in his position of power for at least a few years. That has to be constructed. Simultaneously, those demographic parameters like gender and age, he has to create a sense of renewal, of a new generation coming in as can be trusted, that have got new ideas, new enthusiasm. Though these are all all the considerations that are feeding into this mix. And in the process, of course, he has to keep those enemies happy to make sure they don't go out and create havoc. And people are often going to be very sensitive about being seen as being the casualties in a reshuffle like this. And they also know it is an important one, and one that is probably going to determine whether they are still going to have high-level cabinet positions after next year's elections. Simultaneously, and that we know from the ANC elections late last year and early next year, the NEC and the NWC, there are so many new people in those bodies. I think there are about 10 members of the NWC or the ANC that are not in cabinet. And that is another factor. They have to be brought in to show that the ANC is renewing, that is not just staying with the old guard. And the old is simultaneously, if you want to move some of the old guard out, you have to keep them happy by giving them, finding out, I think they're quick calls, ambassadorial positions.
It's worse than trying to organise a seating plan at a wedding. We're just getting some live visuals coming to us from the Union buildings. But my producer is actually saying we need to take a little bit of a break. I just want to get clarity. We need a quick break before the top of the hour, I would imagine. So we'll just take a quick look at... OK, we don't need to take a break. Everything is changing. So very, very quickly. JJ, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I like what you've said about the NEC factor. Remember, there are some ministers, right, who were not elected into the NEC. And often that becomes a quandary because it means essentially they're out of the loop, right? Because most of the nuances of what's going to happen in government, etc., are discussed at the NEC. Right? And so you don't need, if you're not in the NEC, it means you must be briefed first what was discussed. And so I think that's why over the years, the presidents, if you look at all the cabinets, most of the cabinet ministers are members of the NEC.
You can see Fikile Mbalula there.
So if you are not... so that may just be a factor to say the people who are not in the NEC may be like, you know, fair game for the president to say, sorry, you're not in the NEC, I have to accommodate people who are in the NEC. So I'm beginning, as we get closer to the announcement, I'm beginning to feel that maybe there may be a bigger shake-up, not because of Ramaphosa's renewal of how he now does things, but because the political situation in itself, you know, warrants a bigger shake-up than, or let me just fill the 2 or 3 vacancies.
Yeah, you know, it makes a lot of sense what you say, that this is going to be really big. This is a big announcement. I mean, it was meant to happen at 7, pushed to 8. It's now just been pushed to 8:30. And as you say, you explained to us earlier, JJ and Siphamandla as well, that these announcements, these sit-downs with ministers who are going to be either appointed or disappointed, as we say, they have to happen right very close to the announcement.
To avoid leaks.
You don't want a disgruntled ex-minister going and saying all sorts of things to the media, leaking information, etc., etc. So it seems there's a great deal of consultation.
And by the way, it has happened where a minister, right, that did not know they were no longer a minister. So they went to bed, and then when they woke up, because Zuma used to reshuffle.
He did the late night stuff.
Then you wake up and you are phoned by your friends and say, "Hey, you're no longer a minister." So I think they're trying to avoid that because that's quite discourteous, honestly. Somebody's in your cabinet. I mean, how many cabinet ministers? I mean, there are many, but you can make a few phone calls to them before you make a big announcement. So I suppose that kind of cleanup and management is happening now.
I want us to, as we watch these visuals, I just want us to also play a couple of clips from earlier interviews. The Black Business Council